This is Bruce Andriatch, Assistant Managing Editor at the Buffalo News, here today with reporter Patrick Lakamp, and we're here to talk about a criminal case that Patrick has been covering for about the past 9 months. It's been in the news for about 5 years, and it's one that has gotten increasing public attention as the case has, I think it's fair to say, had more twists and turns and gotten stranger as the weeks and months have gone by. It's a case that involves a local business owner who owns a strip club in Cheektowaga, but it's so much more than that. And Pat, I wanted to start just by talking about just giving our viewers, our readers, just a brief description of what the case that we've come to call the Pharaohs case, or more recently the Outlaws case, what's it all about?
The core of the case involves allegations from the U.S. Attorney's Office that young women were preyed upon, they were addicted to drugs, and they were used for sex acts at Pharaohs. The first indictment came in 2019 when a DEA agent, Joseph Bongiovanni, was accused of accepting bribes to protect drug dealers. The next indictment included Michael Masecchia, a teacher who was convicted and now serving time in jail for growing pot and distributing pot in Western New York. Then the next indictment included Peter Gerace, the strip club owner in Cheektowaga, who was accused of drug trafficking, sex trafficking, and paying bribes to the retired DEA agent.
The reason this case has gotten so much attention, or I should say the reasons, are many. But I just wanted to go over some of the elements of this case that have gotten it the attention that it's gotten. As we mentioned, it involves a retired DEA agent accused of taking bribes. It involves a local strip club called Pharaohs in Cheektowaga. It includes allegations that drugs were used to get young women addicted to then get them to trade sexual favors in exchange for more drugs. It includes allegations that as the case progressed, there was witness tampering, including one allegation that dead rats were thrown onto the hood of a car. It involves a local motorcycle club. It involves allegations that organized crime is involved. A judge who was forced to recuse himself when one of the defense attorneys entered into the record the possibility that character witnesses could be called who knew the judge. And then most recently, it included a woman who had worked at the Gentlemen's Club, who was found dead in Wellsville, and what was initially purported to be maybe a suicide, but according to indictments that came out this week, the prosecution is suggesting that it could have been a purposeful act. Or they're not calling it murder exactly, but she was provided drugs by somebody else, and those drugs killed her. That's about the highlights, right?
Yes. August 1st is when this case became what I call an Excel spreadsheet case, because the number of defendants has increased since then. It includes the Outlaws, Motorcycle Club members, president. And these are national leaders, not just a local leader, who have a nexus with Peter Gerace and Pharaohs. They worked there. The Outlaws president, John Ehrman, was the general manager of Pharaohs. And Pharaohs has had a relationship, according to the government, with the Rare Breed Motorcycle Club in Wellsville and the Outlaws. So the government's theory is that Gerace reached out to the motorcycle club members who had people in Wellsville, and there was a conspiracy to intimidate, silence a witness, Crystal Quinn, who was found dead of an overdose. So we have, think of it as circles. You have the core, the initial men who are indicted. You have the motorcycle club members, several who are employees of Pharaohs. There are 4 who are indicted. Then you have the Wellsville people, Simon Gogolak, Howard Hinkle, the people in Wellsville who were with Crystal Quinn at about the time she died. And there are about, last count, about 18 people who have been charged indirectly or directly with this Pharaohs case. Yeah. And many of them are in jail right now. Only one person has actually been convicted of plea guilty. That's the teacher who was growing pot. the rest, many of them were in custody as their case proceeds in court. August, when Crystal Quinn was, found dead,
Right.
that's when this case became the government became fixated on trying to figure out what happened to her.
Yeah.
She was going to be one of the witnesses. She was a former employee, and she was going to be a witness in the case against Gerace. And that's when this case really took on a whole different level.
There's so many elements involved that it sounds like it could be a movie, a screenplay, a book, something like that. But one of the elements, and it's come up periodically, but I would say not often, is the question of organized crime involvement in it, which, of course, people are always interested in that. But you think this is less about organized crime and more about other aspects of it, correct?
To me, the core of the case is, the heartbreaking and outrageous accusations about women who are being preyed upon at a strip club.
Yeah.
And the government has said Bon Giovanni acted to protect those who he thought were members of organized crime.
Okay.
The government is not saying that they're proving that there was organized crime, but that's how he acted because he thought there were organized crime. The judge in the case, Lawrence Filardo, has said that the prosecutors can use the term Italian organized crime, however and whenever they want.
Yeah.
If they use, but they're restricted in using terms like mafia, connected, mob. They can only use those terms if they need to explain something that's in an email or a text.
Yeah.
There is restrictions on how that terminology can be used. But IOC, Italian organized crime, the prosecutors can use that all they want.
Sometimes in cases like this that involve allegations of conspiracies, you hear that the government is pursuing cases against people, but they might have a so-called bigger fish in mind. But based on what you've seen so far, it appears that it's Bon Giovanni and Gerace that are the targets, correct?
Yes. Yes. Until August 1st, when the witness turned up dead, like I said, that has expanded the case, and the government is fixated and
Right.
determined to investigate, find out what happened, and hold those accountable to her death.
And on that matter, you had a story that was published just in the last couple of days by the Buffalo News about a series of new indictments that came down. And these all seem to be related to the question of who was involved potentially in witness tampering. How important were those indictments to the eventual continued prosecution of this case?
Well, the government is very concerned about obstruction of justice.
Yeah.
And we're going to be hearing that term a lot, obstruction of justice. Those are the counts in addition to witness tampering and witness retaliation. I have to say also the really serious charge against Simon Gogolak, the man who reported Crystal Quinn dead
Right.
in his home of an overdose, faces a charge of distributing fentanyl, causing death.
Right.
That's a pretty serious, they're all serious charges. That is a big league charge he's facing.
That was my reference earlier. He's not been charged with murder, but he's been charged with giving her a drug that caused her death.
Yes.
So
Yes.
maybe semantics, but
Yes.
that seems serious. The other more recent news was that for a long time, the government was pursuing a trial of Bon Giovanni and Gerace at the same time. But I think it was late last week the judge decided that no, those trials rather were going to be separated. What's the impact on both of these men and on the eventual trials that take place?
It helps Bon Giovanni in the sense that he gets to have his trial sooner rather than later. His trial will start in February. The date for Gerace's trial has not been set yet. It will only happen after the Bon Giovanni trial. It's interesting to note that both men wanted to have their trials separately back in the summer, and the previous judge who handled the case denied that, saying there was too much in common.
Right.
He said that there could be a joint trial. Bon Giovanni part of the reason Bon Giovanni wanted a separate trial was he didn't want to be stuck with the stigma of the sex trafficking allegation against Gerace. Gerace wanted a separate trial because he didn't want to be stuck with the stigma of the Italian organized crime,
Right.
stigma, that allegation that Bon Giovanni has to deal with in court. So both men all along have wanted separate trials. Now they're getting it, and the reason why they're getting it is because the government has moved to disqualify one of Gerace's lawyers, and that's going to take some time to sort out if they need a new lawyer. If they don't need a lawyer, they have to go through hearings to, Gerace has to keep his defense team together. That'll take some time to do that with hearings before the judge. Bongiovanni did not want to wait for that to happen, and the government agreed that Bongiovanni should not have to wait for that to happen.
I have one last question for you. During the course of the proceedings, there have been questions about how much the publicity in the case is going to affect the ability to pick jurors. There was a time when there was talk of moving one or both trials to a different venue. You've covered the courts for a long time. What's your impression of what the jury selection process is going to be like here and how long that may take? And do you think that the publicity, and to be fair, a lot of it provided by the coverage you've done, is going to have an effect on the trial?
I don't. I think that selecting a jury will take more than one day. I mean,
Yeah.
it's going to take an effort because Gerace knows a lot of lawyers. He knows a lot of cops. We have a lot of people in this case. There are so many defendants in this case. There are some 40 lawyers who have conflicts of interest. They couldn't even represent some of the people
Right.
because they're of previous representation. So I think choosing a jury will be won't be easy, but judges have ways to they can take steps to make sure a jury is fair, and they ask a lot of questions, and it's not like you can't be a juror if you read a news story
Right.
about this case. You can't be a juror if you're influenced and you said that's going to affect you and how you hear the case and decide the case.
Right.
So just reading stories or hearing about it on TV or the radio doesn't disqualify a juror.
Right. Next big step in this case, the next big moment, the trial should get underway for Bongiovanni in February.
Yes.
We'll be watching.
Second week of February.
All right. Thank you, Pat.
I will say that the trials have been set before and adjourned, and I think this is the fourth time they've set a trial date. So I think this might happen this time. We'll see.
All right. Thank you.
Welcome.